Joining me now, ClimateDepot.com executive editor Marc Morano. Marc, this gives me an opportunity to remind everyone what that ghoul John Kerry told the nations of Africa. This was only 3 years ago almost to the day. In all of his climate colonialism, he threatened African nations and said, your fossil fuel projects, your natural gas projects, are going to struggle to get financing from us in the West and are likely not going to turn a profit. So, in essence, telling Africa that they just needed to stay in poverty and stay in the dark and keep their fossil fuels in the ground because it's not good for the climate.
Yes, this has been going on in earnest since the Obama administration. And you're right, John Kerry made that comment. President Obama, when he was in Africa, said the whole world can't have air conditioning. The low point was when Treasury Secretary under Biden, Janet Yellen, went to, I believe it was either Uganda or Zimbabwe, in front of a straw hut and was praising Africans for their climate commitment. People barely at a subsistence level of living are being lectured by wealthy Westerners who come in and restrict their development, restrict the financing. Trump's speech should be epic tomorrow in front of the UN. He's given epic climate speeches and energy speeches to the World Economic Forum. I hope he lets them have it tomorrow. But what we're looking at here is poor Africans, poor South Americans, poor Asians who are literally not getting projects financed. They're going into this black hole of climate finance, which means essentially that international bureaucrats are sucking down the money and the developing world isn't getting any energy. It is completely just like anti-human is the way you could describe it. In 5 African countries, the carbon offsets alone of some of these Europeans who push these development restrictions to the banks, up to 1/5 of all the land in these countries in Africa are owned by wealthy Europeans for carbon offsets. So they're locking up land by Africans who can't develop it. The whole situation is wrong, and the Trump administration, to its credit, is trying to set this straight and do the right thing and allow finally for the developing world to catch up to the developed world.
They are and were renewable energy racist. To tell those nations that they were going to have to literally live in the dark and they were not allowed to raise their standard of living by developing fossil fuels is pure racism. Let's just call it what. Let's use the word they would use.
Yeah, and it's literally them saying the energy transition. It's easier to transition your gender than it is to go to the green energy transition. I mean, I've always said that. It was never going to happen. It was just making the bureaucrats wealthy in these developing world as they literally starve them of energy.
Speaking of the left-wing Luniverse, I'll call it, California is now looking to keep fossil fuels after Gavin Newsom sued Big Oil. The refineries are shutting down. Oil companies are leaving. Chevron is leaving the state. They mandated that you could only sell or buy new electric vehicles, not gas-powered electric vehicles. That was overturned. Thankfully, the EPA waiver that was issued under the Biden administration was rescinded. But now they realize that, well, this is going to impoverish an entire state?
Yeah, this is after 25, 30 years of just pounding energy companies and energy exploration in California, suddenly Gavin Newsom, who has presidential ambitions, is like, no, don't leave, the first time the governor ever called one of the largest companies in the entire state, finally calls us, don't leave, we need your refinery, we need your oil. And Chevron's like, it's been 25 years of you pounding the hell out of us with your regulations. And he's like, well, we're gonna delay the cap on profits and lift some minor restrictions. And they're not having it. California is a fraud when it comes to this net zero green agenda. They've been doing for decades. We're way ahead of the green agenda. They've been importing their refined crude oil from Iraq, from Saudi Arabia, from Brazil, from all these developing world countries with low environmental standards, with low human rights standards in the case of some of them. And this is how they get their low emissions, and they've achieved their Green New Deal fantasies. I'll tell you what we should do is if we finance the projects to these developing world, maybe then Gavin Newsom can buy more of the projects from Saudi Arabia or Brazil or Ecuador or whatever, and then get the oil back into California. It is a fraud, and let's hope, I hate to say it, but the people of California voted for this, and if the big oil companies start exiting and California gets even more expensive energy, it is what they voted for, but what they need is new leadership in California, and I don't expect that anytime soon.
Speaking of the hypocrisy, remember when Gavin Newsom went to communist China to hump and pump and do his Ron Popeil for BYD and BYD's electric vehicles? So China is the biggest carbon emitter, the biggest polluter in the world.
Yes.
But if it's an EV in China, then he's all for it and he's like promoting it. I digress. I got to run. Marc Morano, great to see you. We'll see you very soon.
Thank you, Dagan.